to CBNext Live. This is Next News Review. I'm Franklin Katunda. The Texas State House has passed a bill that will give the Department of Transportation power to raise the speed limit to 85 miles per hour, as reported by CBS Dallas. Once the Senate clears the bill, it will allow Texas drivers to drive up to the new speed limit in designated lanes on a highway that normally have a lower posted speed limit. The measure will definitely make Texas highways the fastest ones in the nation. Washington, D.C. News from the Congolese immigrants in the United States. The Congolese political alliance called APARECO gathered last March 2011 in Washington, D.C. on a 3-day meeting, a party's meeting that brought all the representatives from all over the country. So the party representatives argued that, quote, the country is under the process of being divided by foreign military and political leaders at the highest level of the presidency. Mr. Abraham Lwakabonga told the press in Washington, D.C. that they have nominated new folks who will represent the party in different states. The state of Texas will be represented by Gigi Mpeye, and the state of Nebraska will be represented by Mbeya, the party's general secretary and representative of that state. And then also Mr. Mustafa Sumbu was nominated as the representative for Virginia. And we go straight to Kigali, Rwanda. The U.S. Deputy Commander of Civil Military Activities for the AFRICOM, the U.S. Africa Command, Mr. Anthony Holmes, just ended a 2-day visit in Rwanda, which was aimed to strengthening bilateral and cooperative military relations between Rwanda and the United States, as reported by the Chinese press agency Xinhua. The Rwanda defense spokesman, Mr. Gilles Rutarimana, said the visit focused on several issues such as the current situation in Somalia and in the DRC. Mr. Holmes later held extensive talks with the Rwandan military team, which was headed by the Ministry of Defense, Mr. James Kabarebe. News did not mention at all that James Kabarebe, he is one of the highest Rwandan officers that was cited in most of the killings that took place in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Following up on the month of April, special elections in Africa, we will talk about Abidjan, Ivory Coast. The world's news networks extensively reported on last Ivorian president's arrest by the French-backed soldiers loyal to Mr. Alassane Ouattara, the challenger. The elections were said to be won by Mr. Ouattara, while President Laurent Gbagbo claimed victory and refused to leave power on a showdown that went on for more than 4 months. Meanwhile, the French government tried to spin the news and distance itself from the attack, but amazingly, news reports published already that the former colonist of Ivory Coast has about 80% interest in the oil produced in Ivory Coast. Mr. Gbagbo was apprehended military while taken by surprise in his heavily guarded residence, shirtless, powerless, as you can see in these pictures. Now, this is an embarrassment and an outrage to see the way France and most Western governments handled the crisis for months. While France, the United Nations, many other countries had recognized the challenger's legitimacy over the incumbent, news accounted losses of lives by thousands since the violent showdown began. The last 29th of this year alone, the International Red Cross reported about 800 deaths in the aftermath of a fight between the two forces that was fighting from one side, Laurent Gbagbo, and on the other side with Alassane Ouattara in the locality of Duekwe. The less dignified arrest of a former president on one hand clearly showcased a lack of leadership in these two high-level officials in Ivory Coast who refused to negotiate sooner, and rather they divided the citizens into two factions. Now here's the question that we have from our editorial staff. Why do we have to organize elections in African nations if candidates who are called to preach by example don't agree on the rules of the game? cannot accept the results after they lose. After they lose, they cause thousands of people to die. That's the question we have for you. We're waiting for your reactions, but I'm going to read you quickly some reactions I already got here from our networks on Facebook and tweets. We have Olivier Congo in Luanda who actually reacted quickly. He said the end of the dictator is just the beginning of a new dictator. And another guy tweet, his name is Judy Kell, and he said Laurent Gbagbo cannot be compared to Patrice Lumumba because he has blood in his hands and Mr. Lumumba is a hero and has been a victim. Well, that's very interesting. So we're waiting for your comments here at our desk on CBNext Live. We want them. We want to hear them. And we just want to present them. We will talk about it on our next show. Send them to franklin@cbnext.com. Kinshasa, the DR Congo, at least 50,000 people gathered in the stadium, and about 30,000 more outside of the stadium attended to the Etienne Tshisekedi's first big rally in Kinshasa since Sunday. This is heading to the November election in that country. In a 45-minute speech in Lingala, the president of the Union for Democracy and Social Progress, called UDPS, has spoken about the condition of the country, and he painted a bleak picture of the state of the country under the leadership of President Joseph Kabila. Mr. Tshisekedi has been a symbol of a democratic opposition to dictatorship in Zaire and Congo since 1980. Last 2006 elections, he protested against pre-election irregularities and missed, according to his own supporters, an opportunity to win the presidency and more seats for his party in the parliament. Now, just last January of 2011, President's allies in the parliament voted for an amendment of the constitution that scrapped the second round from the elections. The move is designed to help incumbent president to secure his re-election in November 2011, sadly. Although the leading parties failed to nominate a unique candidate to face off incumbent Joseph Kabila, it is believed by many in Kinshasa that only fair and independent polls will make the long-time charismatic opponent to Mobutu the possible winner. They're talking about Etienne Tshisekedi. So many leaders from major political alliances support him and call for unity, reconciliation, and leadership that will restore confidence, peace, and economic development of this rich but impoverished country. The 87-year-old Mr. Tshisekedi is seen at this time as the Mandela of the Democratic Republic of Congo. We go straight to Washington, D.C. The Friends of the Congo, the D.C.-based NGO, presents a drama play titled Ruined by Lena Nottage. Playwright Lena Nottage is the second African-American woman in history to win the Pulitzer Prize in drama. The play is a compelling story about women's courage and grace when overcoming sexual violence in the Eastern Congo. On a phone conversation we had with Mr. Kambale, the events coordinator, he articulated that showing up at the Mother's Day event in D.C. and donating for it should make anybody, regardless of your nationality, proud for standing against sexual abuse and violence against women in the DR Congo. Also, by doing so, he believes that attendees will send a clear message of protest to multinationals that are engaged or sponsor the bloody minor conflict in the DR Congo. The event will take place at the Arena Stage, which is also called the Meade Center for American Theater in Washington, D.C. So you can make a note of it. It's Sunday, May 8th at 5:30. You can get your ticket at CongoArena.com, as they say. There will be plenty of music, African Congolese music. There will be exotic buffet, and then also there will be an after-play panel discussion. Coming up, the Congolese Press Review, and this is the review that we will give you in collaboration with Congo Forum Belgium. This segment of the news is brought to you with a hard work that people have done in Brussels and also in Kinshasa. And I want to make sure that we get it to you, as it is newspapers that are translated into the English language to make sure that the audience here in America can understand what people are writing in the Congo. Looking into the monthly review, the newspapers that I translated, I just got a few of them. Le Potentiel is writing about the failure of the Congolese government to crack down on illegal exploitation of mineral in the eastern part of the country. The newspaper notes a resurgence of unlawful mining raw materials dealings among civilians, military, and trade operators. The last April 1st, a U.S. law called Dodd-Frank, writes the journalist, was set to impose a certification for all minerals originating from the Eastern Conflict Zone. The Obama's Financial Reform Act has put some fears in many mafia networks in the region because of the risks to see important stocks of their mineral being denied in international mining market if lack of certification there is. One of the April month editions of the Palmarès is talking about the same story but emphasizing that Congolese economic operators, middlemen brokers in the mining sectors in the northern Kivu have written a letter to President Obama asking for 6 to 12 months moratorium before applying the financial reform laws. They argued that the delay in applying those laws will help the business to fiscally prepare and adjust before the new certification rules will apply. We learn also that the Department of State now is reporting that in most parts where mines are being collected in the DRC, children make up 30% of the workforce in the informal or artisanal sector. The newly 2010 Human Rights Report from the Bureau of African Affairs, quoting the NGO PAC, testifies that an estimate of 10 million miners work in the informal sector nationwide, while up to 16% of the Congo's population may have indirectly relied in the so-called artisanal or small-scale mining. Finally, the April edition of the newspaper La Prosperité extensively writes on the UN mapping report. Quoting the UN High Commission on Human Rights, Mr. Ndiaye, who visited the Congo, said, write the newspaper, there is a need to initiate special joint committees within the Congolese judiciary system to have judges from the Democratic Republic of Congo and also judges from other countries to sit in the same courts in trials. So Mr. Ndiaye, who was flying from Geneva to Kinshasa, met with the opposition congressman, Mr. Clement Kanku, in the capital city of Kinshasa. They discussed ways in which the parliament will design laws to empower the judiciary system that will try and punish actors of violence and mass killings of civilians in the eastern region and elsewhere in Congo. And also our special comment will come. Stay tuned. We will be right back and we will call it a spotlight.